Take a moment and go before the Lord and ask for God's blessing on the preaching of God's word on this Palm Sunday. Heads are bowed, eyes are now closed. Precious and wonderful God, I thank you for another opportunity to stand behind this sacred and consecrated desk. I thank you, dear God, now to stand in the shoes of John. I pray, dear God, that you will send the Holy Spirit that makes preaching easy. And I pray, dear God, that through this and all things, the body of believers will be drawn closer to you. Now, these and all of the blessings we ask in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. Join me in the gospel according to John, the 12th chapter, the 12th through the 16th verses. The gospel according to John, the 12th chapter, and the 12th through the 16th verses, and I will be reading from the New Revised Standard Version of the Holy Bible. Hear the word of the Lord. The next day, the crowd that had come, somebody say come. The crowd that had come to the festival heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel. Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, Do not be afraid, daughter of Zion. Look, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt. His disciples did not understand these things at first. But when Jesus was glorified, then they remembered that these things had been written of him and had been done to him. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. My brothers and my sisters, for just a few moments that is mine this morning, I want to talk with you from the topic of really asking you a question. Have you come to see Jesus? Have you come to see Jesus? This past week, I had the opportunity to take a little inventory, both professionally and personally. As I was completing St. Joseph's forms for our annual conference, I had to give an arithmetic accounting of how we have treated that which has been entrusted unto us. Now, in the process of doing so, I thought about some of those members over the course of the past year who have joined the church. I thought about increased revenue in the church. I thought about some members of the church who now have transitioned on to the church triumphant. I also thought about the new way in which we do church, and I received a report that said last week we had 779 Facebook views, 275 YouTube views, and 413 website views. My. In a span of 12 months, God has brought us a mighty long way. I was proud to make St. Joseph's report to the annual conference. Now, in addition to quantifying ministry over the course of this past week, I also took inventory to qualify ministry by thinking about where I was a year ago and reflecting on where I am now. I have come to this point. I have come to this moment. I've come to this pulpit to preach a word from the Lord this morning, unequivocally saying, I have come to see Jesus. I've come to see Jesus not just through the celebrations, but I've come to see Jesus more so through the journey. I've come to see Jesus not just through the good times, but I've also come to see Jesus through bad times too. I've come to see Jesus not just through life's high points, but I've come to see Jesus more so when I've been feeling pretty low. What I'm really trying to say, my brothers and sisters, is that coming to see Jesus has a lot less to do with a physical position and a lot more to do with an emotional perspective. Coming to see Jesus has little to do with your location for observation, but a lot more to do with a faithful optimism where you believe in your heart that Jesus can fix your situation. Oh, over the course of the past 12 months, I've been a pastor in the midst of a pandemic. I dealt with the loss of my mother who closed her eyes for the last time. I've been attempting to bring comfort to those who are dealing with loss in their lives while speaking out against senseless killings of African Americans and championing the cause of voting rights in America. What I'm trying to say is that the sum total of all my parts over the course of the last year leads me to this moment right here and right now on Palm Sunday where I can tell you I have come to see Jesus. But watch this. This Palm Sunday sermon is not about me. I'm asking the question of you. Have you come to see Jesus? Have you come to see Jesus even at times when you've left the cemetery after burying your loved one? Have you come to see Jesus while seeing America regress instead of progress, all under a pervasive way of thinking called Make America Great Again? Have you come to see Jesus even through 2020 as black lives were marginalized and as deaths resulting from COVID-19 were trivialized? Have you come to believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is still the Redeemer of all? What I'm suggesting, my brothers and sisters, is that if you too can look back on your recent past, if you too can take an inventory of all that you've been through, both the good times and the bad, the joy and the pain, if you too believe that no matter what you're wrestling with, your steps are still ordered by God, you too can come to this moment as we begin a week of tracing Jesus's last steps into Jerusalem and say that you too have come to see Jesus. This is not the first time a body of believers has taken inventory after a period of reckoning and thinking about their experiences and how those experiences have influenced their faith. Coming to see Jesus is something we all should be doing right now on this Palm Sunday, because it's something that our Jewish brothers and sisters did 2,000 plus years ago on the first Palm Sunday. When we look at the text, we're preaching this morning and celebrating Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem by looking at the Palm Sunday narrative as told to us by the writer of John. Now, I like to say that each of the four Gospels has a personality, and each one is different, meaning none are exactly the same. Matthew is a little different from Mark, Mark is a little different from Luke, and those first three Gospels are a whole lot different from John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell us about Jesus' entry into Jerusalem and describe people as putting down leafy branches. John is the only writer who specifies that the people held palms. John is also different insofar as the other three Gospels put an emphasis on Jesus. John's emphasis is much less so on Jesus, but John's emphasis is more so on the people who came to see Jesus. What then does John mean by specifically writing about people holding palms and coming to see Jesus? I'm so glad you asked. In her best-selling book, Cast: The Origins of Our Discontents, my Howard University sister Isabel Wilkerson chronicles history and distinguishes racial discrimination from caste by noting that racial discrimination is based on immutable characteristics. It's something that's on the surface. It's something that you can see, but caste is something that's so deeply ingrained into a social order, it's something you really can't see. She highlights three significant periods of structural discrimination by referencing the British caste system in India. Everybody's heard of Mahatma Gandhi. She references the Jim Crow caste system here in the United States of America. Everybody's heard of a preacher by the name of Martin King. She references the Nazi caste system in Germany. Now, I would respectfully add to that list the Roman Empire's caste system over marginalized Jews in the Greco-Roman world. What I'm trying to say is that these brothers and sisters in this text needed hope in the midst of despair because of the way they were treated by society. That's why they had come to see Jesus. Oh, they had come to see Jesus because they had been marginalized. They had come to see Jesus because they too had been trivialized. They had come to see Jesus because of a dominant social order that pushed them to the periphery and discounted their worth. These brothers and sisters came to see Jesus because, just like so many of our sisters, they have been objectified, and they come to see Jesus because, like so many African Americans in encounters with the police, they get vilified. What I'm trying to say is that because of their experiences, these brothers and sisters too had come to see Jesus. Now, there's a transition in this text. And looking at these people and looking at how they've been marginalized and understanding that they too had to take an inventory, and in recognizing that just like each and every one of us have come to see Jesus, they came to see Jesus because they needed some relief from their stuff too. The transition in this text deals with a move and focus, not so much on the pain in the here and now, but these brothers and sisters are focusing on theology and equality, or equality in theology, of the way things are supposed to be. In placing an emphasis on the people in this text, John tells us about the great crowd that had come to see Jesus as they took branches of palm trees and went to meet him. Now, the crowd was great in size because at this time of the year, they were getting ready for the Jewish Passover, which was on the 5th day of this week. Meaning on the night of this week, the night that we call Maundy Thursday, the night that we celebrate Jesus' Last Supper, these devout Jewish brothers and sisters were going to reenact what Moses had done generations earlier when they celebrated Israel's freedom from Egypt. John begins by saying the next day to signify the significance of the previous day. You see, Jesus had gotten popular. Jesus was now a threat to the ruling class. He had just raised Lazarus from the dead, and because these devout Jews believed that the power of the Messiah to get past their situation had all come, they believed their hopes were rising with Jesus. But John uniquely places an emphasis on the crowd, and John uniquely tells us about palm branches because these devout Jews weren't just tired of being persecuted by Pharaoh in the past, they were also tired of being subjugated by Caesar in their present. The palm was a symbol of Jewish nationalism. The palm was a symbol of Jewish liberation. And the palm was a symbol of freedom and equality that these brothers and sisters believed could exist and would exist in their future and would be made possible because of Jesus. 2 centuries before, as Israelite troops defeated the Syrians and purified the Jewish temple, they waved palms. Even long after Jesus' death, devout Jews minted coins that said the liberation of Israel and engraved them with palms. In other words, as a sign of Jewish protest against unfair caste system, their waving palms at Jesus was a sign that these oppressed people believed the hopes of their future would rise with Jesus. Oh, to put this Palm Sunday narrative in a contemporary context, these brothers and sisters showing up in a crowd and waving palm branches talking about liberation is the same as a bunch of us showing up in support of George Floyd at a rally for Black Lives Matter wearing red, black, and green. These brothers and sisters showing up with palms as an ode to the past is like a crowd of African American protesters showing up wearing t-shirts with a clenched fist to give a shout out to the politics of resistance that those brothers embraced at the 1968 Olympic Games. What I'm really trying to say this morning is that in talking rather to a group of people who should be taking inventory of their own experiences as we enter Holy Week, all of us have been subjected to a caste system, and these brothers and sisters aren't the first to put their hope in Jesus and believe in something new. All of us should come to a point where we come to see Jesus. Now, just like there's a transition in the text, there's also a transition in our time. History tells us that the body of believers known as the church has done more than just praise and worship for the kingdom to come, but the church has come to see Jesus by focusing on education, focusing on liberation, and focusing on voting rights right here in the kingdom at hand. History says that we came to see Jesus with a focus on education after the institution of slavery, when we started to establish HBCUs to ensure that the 14th Amendment's guarantee of an equal opportunity would also mean equal education. We came to see Jesus through the establishment of black banks and lending institutions that would help us purchase homes and ensure that living in a caste system where we were subjugated, just like Jews were subjugated in the Greco-Roman world, we too could create generational wealth and pass on to our children. Oh, coming to see Jesus through leadership of a preacher in Atlanta, Georgia, who stood up to Bull Connor and consequently stood up to Jim Crow. So by paraphrasing the famous words that Moses told Pharaoh, Martin Luther King Jr. told the South, "Let my people vote." I guess then what I'm trying to say is that coming to see Jesus is a perspective that's based on your experiences, and it allows us all to believe that our steps are ordered by God based on what we've been through in the past. Then let the church now organize. Let the church now come together as a body of believers and descend on states like Georgia, where their governor has decided to roll back the clock of progress by signing into law one of the most oppressive voting rights bills ever since John Lewis and Hosea Williams marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on another Sunday known as Bloody Sunday down in Selma, Alabama. Let us all as a church come to see Jesus right here in North Carolina by combating discriminatory bills in the General Assembly and demanding that we maintain same-day voter registration, no excuse absentee voting, and extending polling place hours on Sundays so congregations like St. Joe can still have souls to the polls and elect representatives of our own choosing. That's how in this day and age we come to see Jesus. What I'm trying to say is that everything is on the line. Everything is going to be in play come the 2022 elections, and I don't want to look back. I want to look forward by the power of Jesus. Otherwise, we'll have Jim Crow wearing new clothes. Now, when we look back at this text, we see God's grace in this text. We see God's hand in this text. We see the promise of liberation in this biblical text. In verse 16, the writer of John says that Jesus' disciples didn't understand these things at first, but then they did once Jesus was glorified. They didn't understand that the messianic promises of the past were coming to fruition, but they came to understand once Jesus got the glory. They didn't understand that the things they were witnessing and the things they were experiencing, but they did come to understand once Jesus got the glory. They didn't understand that their lives were just a finite part of the human continuum, and that the things they were witnessing would be a part of history, and they were being a part of helping to write history. Oh, what I'm trying to say, my brothers and sisters, is that they didn't understand, if they were in a contemporary context, that in a culture as diverse as America, how could a sexist, racist bigot get elected president in 2016? They didn't understand why we had to go through a global pandemic. They didn't understand, with variants popping off and mutating in different places, why some people are still politicizing the issue of wearing a mask. They didn't understand why, after an insurrection at the Capitol, how the Senate could vote to acquit the arsonist who not just started the fire, but who dropped the match. They didn't understand how, after a free and fair election, a pied-piping pseudo-arsonist, psychopath narcissist could start to scream voter fraud, and people actually believe him. Oh, my brothers and sisters, there's something we all can appreciate in this biblical text. You don't have to understand everything you're going through. All you have to do is trust God, because that's how Jesus gets the glory. You don't have to be able to control everything. Old people used to tell me, let go and let God, because when you let go and let God, that's when Jesus gets the glory. People used to tell me when I go preach down in the country in Louisiana, they say, Reverend, if you're going to trust him for some things, you ought to be able to trust him for all things. Trust him in the morning. Trust him in the noontime. Trust him in the evening too. Trust him no matter what you're dealing with. Trust him no matter what you're going through. Trust him based on your experiences in the past. And when you come to a point of reflection where you realize all you've been through, and so Jesus can get the glory, That's when you really come to see Jesus. Come to see Jesus. I want to conclude this Palm Sunday sermon by sharing with you something that I hope is obvious. As Jesus was entering Jerusalem, he too had to trust God. Jesus was headed to Calvary, but before he got there, on Thursday, he said, Father, if it is your will, let this cup pass from me. Meaning, Jesus too had to trust God. But when he trusted God, Jesus was glorified and he was able to conquer death, even death on a cross. So we all could have the gift of everlasting life. In order to go through all he had to deal with this week, Jesus too had to trust God, and that's how he got the glory. Now, in the liturgy of the church, some people will call this week that we're entering now Holy Week, but other people, symbolized with the wearing of red, call it Passion Week, because of Jesus' passion and the blood that Jesus shed so we all could live on. I invite each and every one of you, my brothers and sisters, on this Palm Sunday to have a perspective based on everything you've been through. Realize that just like Jesus' steps were being ordered by God, our steps are being ordered by God too. Life has no accidents. Life has no coincidences. We are God's children. And when we start to live a life with purpose and surrender to God, that's when we realize our steps are ordered by God. Now,